The purpose of life is to be help and benefit to other sentient beings as much as possible. And the best way to help and benefit others is to help them to overcome all the suffering and cause of all the suffering, all the defilements, and to help them to achieve not only temporary happiness, but lasting true happiness. But to be able to do that, we ourselves need self to be free from all the defilement ourselves, all the obscuration, and achieve full enlightenment. Therefore, how wonderful it will be if I can achieve enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. May I be able to achieve it. And I'm going to try all my best to achieve it as much as possible. And to achieve that, we need to cultivate all the realizations. And for that, we need to practice, meditate, and need to be reminded of practice by meditation for that very reason. That's why we have come here together. And may our act of coming together, listening to the Dharma, engaging in discussions, reflecting, so forth, become cause and condition to achieve fully enlightenment. Okay. I prostrate to the Arya Tribal Jam. Thus did I hear one time that Bhagavan was dwelling on the mass of Bodhi's mountain in the Dasgriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was observed in the concentrations category of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Master Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Into the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Master Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wish to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that in the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wish to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherentness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compulsion, factor, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all the phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unsustainless, not without sense, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compulsion, no factor. No factor, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no order, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. there is no I element, so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental concept. There is no ignoring, no extinction of ignoring, and so on, up to and including no aging and death and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation of that. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on dwelling in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscurations and without fear. Having completely passed beyond either, there is each point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times of manifestation, completely awakened, unsurprised, or perfect, complete enlightenment, relies on perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurprised mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that truly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth since not for the mantra of perfection of wisdom declared. Adam Gadagada Paragada Parasamgada Bodhi, so Shariputra in both Masters should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. And Bhagavan arose from that concentration, commanded the Bodhisattva Master Shora, saying, well said, son of the being, it is like that. Is it like that? One should practice a profound perfection of the wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the other Kada reaches the Bhagavan, having those spoken the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Master Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding the entire, along with the word of God, women, Asuras, Gandhava, overjoyed, and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I think it seems like I might have kind of skipped a little bit or missed a little bit. I don't remember about something. Yeah. Sajipe Chonshime Rira Lije Yinde Gebade Sange Shindu Mide Uwa Dogunanda Shinla Shepa Shoyidam Gururana Mindalagan Yatayam. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merit I faithfully listen to the Dhamma. May I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient. Sangye Jola Soge Sonam, Chanju Padu Daneka, Bagajin Sogi Sonam, Sola Pinja Sangye Joba, Sangye Jola Soge Sonam, Chanju Padu Daneka, Bagajin Sogi Sonam, Sola Pinja Sangye Joba Shop. So in order to overcome all the obscurations and all the defilements, we need to cultivate the direct antidote of the wisdom relies on the emptiness directly. And in order to have that, first we need to have a penetrating wisdom of insight that relies emptiness through reasoning and logic, through reasonings and investigations. And in order to have that penetrating wisdom of insight, then one need to have Shamata or material concentrations. And so we are on that particular path, the perfection of Shamata or material concentrations. And I think within that, I think maybe we finish the contemplating on the benefit of the material concentrations. Yeah. So I think now we are on this 192 page number at the very beginning, identifying the basis which the mind is placed on the object and how do that. Yeah.
I have page, we didn't finish page 191.
Where are we?
At C. the scriptural source of this separate from the, that's what I marked from last time.
Yeah, same here.
Well, I think.
Separation of the middle extremes.
Mhm. Okay, I think so again, kind of it already explained a little bit the four antidotes for the laziness, you know, and then the scriptural source is there, and then that Lama Tsongkhapa explained meaning of that, and I don't think it's difficult to understand that part. And then I think D, how to reflect on excellent quality of concentrations, you know. And again, we can meditate on the benefit of incredible excellent qualities of the meditative concentrations, because the more you understand that, the more inspiration we have, and the more inspiration we have, the more we are inspired to develop that. And so therefore here it explained, you know, when we develop that shamatha, then there's great blissfulness, you know, mental happiness. And not only that, there is also great physical blissfulness. And because of that blissfulness, physically and mentally, you know, then you will have less tiredness in practicing. There's a lot of joy in practicing, and so that is, and so those will increase, you know, definitely when our mind is peaceful, blissful, more happy, then definitely it will have also our health, you know, less worry, less stress. And also, you know, the delusion will not manifest as long as we are in that meditative state of concentration. So when less of that, then definitely, you know, we will have better health, mental and physical health. That will, and so therefore we will have a much more happy life in this life, you know. And then because of that, you know, shamatha, we can direct our mind, whatever virtuous object that we want to direct, you know, and it make because not only we can direct our virtuous mind towards those, but also there's no distractions, and so therefore, you know, without distractions, then you can achieve any practice more easily. Any meditations, we can achieve the result much more quickly and easily. And at the moment, our mind, even if we want to direct something, you know, we have no control over that. Our mind started to get kind of distracted in other things. But once we have achieved that meditative concentration, then we have control over mind, and whatever you direct, whichever object you direct, you can direct it. And so, and because there will be no uncontrolled distractions, and so, you know, definitely you will have incredible mindfulness, introspection, practice in mind, and due to that, you know, then we'll be able to keep our precepts, the moral discipline, purely without being diluting them. And so therefore we create cause and condition for high rebirth, in the futures, you know. And then, so whatever virtues we try to, it become very powerful, effective, strong, because everything's done without distractions, you know. And in terms of practice, of course, if we have meditate concentration, also we can, even in other activities, you know, whatever you do, become very powerful. And then through Shamata, then one can develop other psychic power, such as clairvoyance, and you know, miraculous power or psychic power, and we can use that to help and benefit other sentient beings, you know. And then mainly, the main purpose, even though there are all these benefits, the main purpose is then so we can cultivate, we can develop the special insight, the wisdom, penetrating wisdom of insight, because that is the main purpose, because that is the key to overcome and eliminate the delusions. And so that, which can cut the root of all the delusions, and thereby eliminating all the delusion that arises, that fundamental root ignorance. And so here it says, you know, if we think, reflect, contemplate more and more on those incredible qualities of having developed the Shamata, the more you feel inspiration, the more you feel enthusiasm in cultivating that Shamata, and to maintain that Shamata, to increase and improve that Shamata, you know, and that kind of, and when that comes, it will be more easy and inspiring to sit on cushion and try to meditate. When we don't have that kind of same inspiration, then it becomes more challenging, difficult to sit and meditate. And so when that happens, then, you know, someone doesn't have to tell us all the time, you know, to meditate or to practice. You know, it will come from within our mind. It comes from, and even someone asks you, you know, you shouldn't meditate, you will not be able to stop, because it's coming from your heart with that kind of understanding. And when that happens, then, you know, when we do meditation from the very deep of our heart, then practice becomes better, meditation becomes better, and then it becomes more easy to develop the Shamata, you know. And then it says, you know, it will be, once we have developed, then it will be difficult to degenerate. It will not degenerate easily. And so then what to do while focusing on the mind? So that is, yeah. So then in that term, you know, identifying the object of the meditations or the Shamata. And so then there are many outlines, which I don't need to go through each of them, I think, because, and then I go where it says the identifying the division of the objects. So all others, you can read yourself, you know, because it's just kind of. And then in regard to that, there are four that is described here, 4 different type of objects for the meditation or Shamata, from the different source of sutras and the Indian scriptures. And then, you know, first it is going to identify the division of objects. So the 4 object of yogi, you know, is called pervasive objects. And again, within that, in terms of the way mind is focused on the objects, and then the object itself. So then there are 4 in that sense. And it is called pervasive object because these objects are pervade both in Shamata and special insight, both Shamata and special insight. And so in terms of the way mind is focused, the one is without analyzing the object, and one is analyzing the objects. So without analyzing the object is the Shamata mind. The way it focuses on the object is without analyzing, single pointed concentrating. And then object of analysis here means then the way Shamata, special insight focus on the object is through analysis. So there's two objects from the point of view of the way it is analyzed, the objects. And then in terms of the object itself, there are two objects. One is, and both of those objects, both for the Shamata and special insight, there is a conventional phenomena and ultimate phenomena. So those objects. So those are the pervasive objects, the four pervasive objects. So then there is what is called object of purifying one's contact, and where they say as regard to the object of purifying one's objects. So another type of objects that can identify. And so again, depending on whatever, in individual, whatever delusion we have predominate because of the strong imprint from the past. So there are five, according to the five different delusions that might be predominated for different individuals. So according to that, then meditating on the antidote of those, so for example, as for the attachments, so those, the five, as for the attachment, then we try to meditate here repulsive, but it is kind of meditating on, impurity of the objects, object of the attachments, essenceless of the object of the attachments, so meditating on the uselessness or the fault of the object of the attachments. So the more we do that, then there's less attachment. So if someone has a strong attachment, so they try to meditate on the fault of the object of attachments, or essenceless or uselessness or meaningless of that. And once we have that feeling of, non-attached, then you try to keep your mind concentrated without analyzing on that. And through that, one can develop Shamata. So the object of that is kind of non-attachment, non-attachment mind. And then in terms of the, in relation to the hatred, then we try to develop loving kindness. Someone who has a strong hatred, then the object of meditation can be a loving kindness. And again, once you have developed loving kindness with the reasoning and logics, contemplations, and once we have developed that loving kindness, then you use that loving kindness as an object of meditative concentration on Shamata, and then just focusing on that state of mind, And then someone who has strong ignorance, then meditating on interdependence, And again, such as, 12 dependent links, interdependent, 12 dependent links, and dependent arisings. And again, once you have that understanding, again, we keep that as a method. And then as the antidote to the pride, then division of the elements, and that means, meditating on, our 18 elements and going in its details. We don't even know much about our own element. If we go really details, even we talk about even within our body about the water element. If you go more deeper and deeper, we understand that we don't know anything about even our own, because our body is made out of all these 4 elements, 5 elements, or and so when you begin to see, oh, I don't know even those very details, and how can I be so pride? And so once, and then as an antidote towards conceptualizations, or is like someone who has too many thoughts. Someone who has many thoughts, antidote is to use the breath, objects. So if you focus on your breath and just focus on your breath, then all the thoughts started to dissolve over the time, and so those are the 5 object of meditation in that. And then there are other, which is called the object of skillfuls, and so again, meditating on aggregates, 5 aggregates, and 18 elements, and 12 sense field or sense faculties, twirling or dependent arisings, and then established and unestablished. That is, sometimes I find this translation quite difficult. Sometimes when I read English, sometimes I don't really understand what it is saying. But also that is how we are, I see the translation not so great, but also I cannot figure out what is better translations. It's easy to find fault in others, but it's difficult to come up with the solutions. That is how we are always. It's so easy to find the faults, but then what is the solutions? Then I have no solutions. I don't have better translations. I can, but here, established and unestablished is meaning, near the name, but is about karma, due to certain cause and conditions, certain result is produced or established, due to negative karma, then suffering is established, or suffering is produced, and not it doesn't produce the happiness. And on the other hand, positive karma establish or produce the happiness, and does not establish or do not produce not sufferings, so I think that is where is that. Where was that? And the object of purifying mental afflictions are 2, peaceful and gross state of higher and lower levels, and 16 aspects of the 4 truth, impermanent, and so forth. And this is mainly the object of special insight. And so again, the first one is, again, it seems cut. When you develop Shamata, there are different levels of Shamata, 4 levels of Shamata within the mind of form realms, and then 4 levels of Shamata within the level of formless realms. And when you establish that, when you want to develop that Shamata, you try to look, for example, the first level of the Shamata, when you try to do in terms of Shira number 10, in terms of the special insight, there is we can say worldly special insight and or ordinary or worldly special insight and downstanding worldly ordinary special insight. And the first one is talking about the worldly or ordinary special insight, and that is, if you want to do the first level of concentration, you try to see all the fault of desire realms, and then see. That is where it says growth. You see all the everything that you experience in the desire realm is very gross and faulty, and the experience of of the first level of the form realm is much more better and peaceful. And through that kind of seeing one as a fault and seeing one as better, through that you develop that kind of analysis, then you develop the first level of the meditative concentration. And then if you want to go further, then you also see the first level, all the experience of the first level of the form realms as gross and faulty, and second level of the experience as more subtle, peaceful, and better. And through that kind of analysis, investigation, then you develop that. And so that is how it goes, So, and then in terms of the downstanding beyond ordinary, and then that is the meditation, such as 16 aspects of the Four Truth. With each of those four truths, and each of them have four aspects, and then that becomes 16. So in terms of the first one, in relation to the truth of suffering, then four aspects within that is all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. All the contaminated experience are all the contaminated experience are in the nature of suffering. All the phenomena are empty and selfless, and nirvana is peaceful. So those are the in relation to so those are the one. And so those kind of analysis or that kind of special insight is more profound, more deeper, and that is special insight of downstanding the ordinary. And so then next one, how does those individuals serve as purpose? The object of purifying one's contact, a special object as that they become an antidote to attachment, and so for the five predominating delusions, and through that, then those delusions can be easily stopped or reduced, minimized, and through that one can achieve single-pointed concentration. For example, if someone has a strong pride, even when you try to meditate on Shamata, because it's so strong of that pride, that can distract you very often. Or if someone has attachment, or if someone has anger, if they have very strong predominating one of delusions, unless we try to put some antidote with that, because they can wild garment, and so it will be more difficult to develop Shamata. But if we try to develop Shamata on the basis of having developed the antidotes, then it will be more easy And so that is the way. And the object of skillfuls are again such as the meditating on the 16 aspect of the Four Noble Truth, and especially that the setlessness and emptiness. So because with that understanding, you negate the sense of the self of the persons, and then it helps to develop the karma abiding easily. If we have developed Shamata on the basis of meditating on emptiness itself, then it will be very difficult. It will be easy to develop the Shamata, special insight later, because we are using the same objects, first on Shamata and then later for the special insight. And so then it will be very easy for the transcend to the next level. And the object of purifying mental afflictions are significant that they become a general antidote to mental afflictions. And so here it says, those objects, those different objects, if we use that as an object of Shamata meditations, then it has a special purpose. Even though we can develop Shamata by using object as a people or piece of woods, but it doesn't have a special purpose of that. For example, for example, we can use a flower, for example, or as a light, as an object of meditations. And by using that, we can develop Shamata on the basis of that. But there is no, except in cultivating Shamata, there is no higher purpose. But if we use the other objects that is described before, while we can develop Shamata on the basis of those objects, but it also serves many other purposes in reducing some of the other delusions, reducing, and to cultivate the special insight, and so forth. So, and so then, next one, it says, how should a person make these meditation objects? So again, I think that we already kind of explained already, those, whichever delusion, 5 delusion mentioned there, whichever are strong in individual, for someone, one of delusion more stronger than others, predominating than others. And whatever that delusion predominating, according to that, then you try to use the antidote of that predominating delusions as the object of Shamata, and those who doesn't have such a predominating any of those 5 delusions, but who are more kind of, and we already talk about that before, and for those who are more kind of balanced, because they don't have any predominating kind of delusion, but who have more kind of equal and balance of all those delusions. And for that, then you can use any of the object explain, there are many objects, different objects that they explain. You don't have to pick particular specific, whichever you feel comfortable, whichever you feel comfortable with that, and so it doesn't have to be sudden, you know. And so then, so whether it's a more balance in the middle or very slight delusion, even you have, and so then it explains a little bit. I don't need to go each of that, what the predominant 5 addiction, what the balance and what the slight mentals means here. There is quite clear, you know. Basically, those who have predominant delusions, any of those 5 delusions, you know, what it means when you're so strong that even you have a very, even the object of that delusion is very small, still it can give you rise to a big delusions, you know, strong delusions, any of those 5. And on the other hand, you know, those who are the balance, who doesn't have so strong and predominating, you know, so then due to the not having a strong imprint from the past, and as well as they see the delusion has faulty, and so they don't really embrace the delusions, you know, and therefore, you know, even though they don't have a strong imprint, but because but still they do not see the faulty of that, and so forth. They do not have a strong delusions, but it doesn't mean they don't have delusion. Delusion still arises, you know. And then those with the slight mental afflictions, and they do not have a strong previous imprint, and as well as because they see the disadvantage of fault of that, and so therefore of all the delusions, the object of the delusions, and so therefore, you know, even the object of the delusion very strong, you know, still they do not develop the delusion hardly, you know. And if it is a small or medium, then the delusion doesn't arise. For example, you know, it's just a give example. What it means is there is a very beautiful objects. For those who have predominating attachments, you know, they don't need a very beautiful object to get a strong attachment. Even not so beautiful, even slightly beautiful, they can have a very strong attachment. Those who are more balanced, you know, then if it's very beautiful, extremely beautiful, they might have attachments. If it is not so beautiful, even beautiful, then they might not have so much attachments. And those who have slight, you know, if it's extremely beautiful, they can have a little bit of that, but it is a, you know, not so beautiful or medium or not so beautiful, then they wouldn't have attachment. So that is where, and that apply with all other delusions. So then here so these are different objects that we can use as the object of Shamata that is described in different sources of sutra and that. But here then we're saying so then what we need to use here as the object of Shamata, you know, and so again we can do individual with it, and especially those who have predominant discursive thought meditation. And I think that is one of the things, because those who have so many thoughts, endless thought, then the object of breathing, using the breath as the mindfulness or meditation concentration is helpful. And that is one of the most common, you know, that has been used among different schools. and especially in Theravada traditions, all these mindfulness meditations, they mostly use the breath. And because it helps to quiet all the different thoughts, and when all the thoughts quiet, when in your mind, all these feelings and thoughts, when it's quiet, immediately you feel some kind of relaxations. And it is easy to see certain results, in terms of relaxing your mind. And so that can be one. But here it is saying by following certain, sutras and certain Indian commentaries, So here Lama Tsongkhapa explaining using the Buddha's image as the object of meditative concentrations. We can use that, so that is here recommending that. And the reason why it is because even though we can use the breath as an object for meditation and any of the objects in terms of just to cultivate Shamata itself, you can develop, but if you use the Buddha's image as a object of your concentrations, then there are many benefits. One, each time we think of the Buddha's image, then we create a lot of merit. We create a lot of imprint, leave a lot of imprint in our minds, and create a lot of merit, because each time we keep in our mind, we are kind of remembering the Buddhas, And if through that, as we develop our concentration in relation to the Buddha's image, and as it becomes more stable and clear, then when we practice others, such as accumulating merit by 7 limb practice, so forth, as a purification, object of purification, as an object of accumulation merit, then when we do visualizing, the visualization becomes very strong. And the more stronger visualization, the more easier to feel that. When you really feel the merit, feel so strongly because you're visualizing so clear, then it is easy to have faith. It can help us to have stronger faith. It can help us to do visualizing, cleansing, and purifying more strongly, and accumulating merit more strongly. And for that, and because we are recalling the Buddha's image, and if we are practice that, then we can, without any effort, we can bring the Buddha's image in our mind quickly, and recollecting the Buddha's image in that way. If we can remember that or recollect that before we die, then again, at the time of death, we are able to do that. Then in the next life, we can have better high rebirth. Also at the time of death, you will have less fear. You will have less fear. You will have more stronger devotions. Yeah. And so then also, especially those who want to do a tantric practice, and because in tantric practice, we visualize ourselves as a deity, especially in generation stages. And so therefore, again, our practice of generation stage, visualizing oneself deity, it becomes very effective to that, because we have already used that method already, when we are cultivating the Shamata. So therefore, using that has a great purpose, or minimum or higher purpose than ordinary objects. And then there is quotations from the King of Sutras in regarding to that, using that. And then it is also, when you visualize the Buddha's image, there are two ways of thinking. One is you think that you are creating new in your visualization, or one is just really thinking the Buddha is always there, has always been there. And so, of course, Buddha is always there. Enlightened mind is always there. Wherever enlightened mind is always there, enlightened body is always there. Enlightened body is not like our gross body. And so therefore, that is the object naturally present, means that always being there, and so that is the better, instead of not being there before and then your mind freshly creating, a new kind of creating that, but instead it is always being there, but you are just kind of bringing your mind, visualizing, and so that should be how. And then how to use that. And so again, the first you try to find any statues or image of the Buddhas and keep in front of you, and then you try to look again and again to that with your eyes, look and again, and then without looking in the eye, you try to bring that image in your mind, And again, time to time, look at it at the very beginning when I visualize not come. Then without looking at that, then again, we try to bring that image in our mind and then try to concentrate that image in our mind, And keep that as the object of your meditations. And sometimes if you don't have that, then you can visualize as described by the teachers or in the books, as the object of your meditations. And then one of the things when you use that object, instead of thinking it as a painting with a flight, but you must try to visualize it three-dimensional, like a statue. But also not just like a statue, but alive, Statues is kind of without, so then you try to visualize not like a flight, like the painting, but more like a three-dimensional, and not only three-dimensional, but alive instead of like a statue, like the Buddha being there, really there. And so that is how we try to do. And then here it says, the concentrations has to be developed by mind and not by sense consciousness. And so therefore, as Ishide refute, because sometimes there are some in some where they explain that you can develop, concentration just by looking at the object with your eye and just focusing on your eye. And so here that has been reputed, and Lama Tsongkhapa also says that is better, because concentration has to be developed by mental consciousness, not by the sense consciousness. But for some practitioner at the very beginning, in order to improve our attention focus, for some, using the sense objects can help. For example, sound, focusing on the sound, whether you are reciting mantras or whether you are playing any particular sound, and then you listen to the sound without any distractions. That is sense consciousness. Or you look at the object with your eyes without any distractions. You can use that as something to help you to develop your focus, concentrations, and less distractions. But when you are trying to develop shamatha, the real meditative concentration, then it has to be developed through mental consciousness, not through sense consciousness. And so therefore, instead of looking at the object itself, then you bring the general image of that object in your mind, and then you concentrate on that image. And so that is, but like, there are some meditation. For some people it is helpful because sometimes they find difficult to concentrate with their mental consciousness. But like if someone play like, what do you call, sinking bowls, and just listening to the sinking bowls, for example. Some people have better concentration when they listen. And some people have better concentrations when they look at the object. So they use that at the very beginning to help them to develop certain level of concentration, but at the end, in order to really develop shamatha, then you have to use your mental consciousness. And shamatha can be only developed by the mental consciousness, but not by the sense consciousness. So that is what is being said here. And then the next is the G, the need to determine one object in the beginning. So when you use the objects, we shouldn't be kind of changing object all the time. If you change object all the time, then it becomes obstacles to develop shamatha. So you try to, first you have to decide what object you want to use for shamatha, and then try to keep same objects instead of changing, because you get bored with one object. Sometimes our minds start to get boring after doing same thing again and again. And we would like to try new things, because that is, we have this kind of, our desire, endless desire, even food, everything we want to try new things. Same thing we do again, we get boring. And same time also in meditation, sometimes when you use same object, you might get boring, and same thing with the teachings. And sometimes you want new things. And for that purpose, if we start changing the object of our meditative concentration, shamatha, all the time, especially when you are seriously devoting yourself to develop the shamatha, then it will be an obstacle. So here Lama Tsongkhapa is advising on the basis of many Indian scriptures and sutras, we try to keep one object. And in terms of the Buddha's image, at the very beginning, you try to go through the details, okay, when you visualize. You either you start from the top or from the bottom. You go through, for example, if you are visualizing Buddha Shakyamuni, the crown, the head, the eyes, the nose, the smiles, the ears and the neck and the body, hand posture and the body posture and the feet posture and color. You go all details. And once you have gone through details, then you try to just keep the general image instead of going in the details, okay? So then you don't go in detail, but very kind of rough, the general image. If you keep the general image without going so details, then it's more easy to develop the stability. And in meditative concentration, shamatha, first the stability had to come. Your mind had to be stable, not being distracted. And so that is one thing you need to general image. And general image, sometimes you might not have a very clarity of that, the Buddha's image. You might have just kind of, yellowish, because Buddha Shakyamuni, if you are visualizing in a yellow color, there's kind of shape like a person's and yellowish. And even you come to that, you just try to keep that stable, that object as meditation. You don't have to worry about the clarity because you can't see all the details of the eyes, nose, everything. You don't see details. You don't have to concentrate on details, but you just have the rough, the general image. If you have that objects, then that is good enough to start with, to develop the shamatha, and then there is the Arya Sura, and then Lama Adisha in his Lamb to Path, they all say same thing. You need to keep one object and not having too many objects or changing in order to develop the shamatha. That, and so then it comes, that you go all the details, and once you come to detail, at the end you have the whole general image, and you try to keep that general image. Even you can't see all the details, and you should be satisfied with that general image. Even is you can't see details, you can't see clarity, all the details, and that is good enough to start with. And if you try to see the clarity, and if you try to focus too much on clarity and go details, like again the crown and again eyes and that, then again it become more distractions, because it is like you are kind of seeing detail. So then if you try, then you cannot develop the stability. And so stability is very important at the very beginning. And then clarity will come later. As you have more stability, clarity will come later. And so that is when you are using that will be the with the familiarity, and then stability comes. With the stability, slowly the clarity will come. And that is saying that is according to the Master Ishide's advice, and is Lama Tsongkhapa saying he also agree with that, and is very essential. And again, Lama Tsongkhapa has already developed shamatha much more early in his life. There is a stories when they were in a ceremony, like a pujas, and he was in such a deep meditation, concentration. Even whole ceremony finished, everyone is gone. He was still in deep meditation. He didn't even realize, what was that the ceremony. And someone has to kind of come and let him wake him up from the meditative thing. And so he already developed the meditative concentration much more earlier, and then realization and emptiness later. But so from also his own experience, Lama Tsongkhapa is also saying that. And so again, we try to focus on the general, the image, the whole body, without going so details, and according to your best ability. And as Lama Tsongkhapa, if some part of the body appear clearly, you try to focus that, and then again, when that clarity goes, you try to focus on the general image. And then here it says, and at the very beginning, before you do meditation, you decide what kind of shape of the Buddha you want to meditate on, what kind of color you want to meditate on, what kind of size you want to meditate on. You make sure, aware of all of that, and then you make a determinations. And once you have done that, then you shouldn't be changing the color. Maybe sometime yellow, sometime green, sometime orange. You just try to keep same color, whatever you decided at the very beginning. in terms of posture, you don't change, where sometimes you're sitting, sometimes standing up, sometimes walking, whatever, you just try to keep the same posture. In terms of size, if you want to decide to keep your size small, you try to keep that small size. Sometimes visualize, sometimes thinking big, sometimes small, because again, you are changing the object in that way, in terms of size, in terms of color, in terms of posture, then that becomes again another kind of obstacles. And so therefore, so you try to keep, what was that? Where did I see that? Yeah, okay. The point is sometimes when we try to meditate on any objects, of course, it's natural for us at the very beginning. Sometimes we have these different visions, different colors, and different experiences. And sometimes it can be very creative, our mind, creative, oh, the Buddha's floating here and there, or becoming very bright and colorful and all of that. But when that happens, we shouldn't allow our mind to run after them. Instead, try to bring back to the same object that we are trying to focus on. And it is advised that when we try to visualize as a Buddha's image, the object should be small, not too big. In some scriptures, they say like size of 4 inches, but it can be smaller than that as well, depending on individuals. If it's too big, then it can be your mind easy to get distracted. And it is extremely too small for the beginner. Maybe it can be the dullness can come again because your mind get too withdrawn. So maybe the size normally is kind of advised like 4 inches. This is talking about cultivating Shamata. Of course, normally when we do the merit field and visualizing, that can be much more like life size, and also in the space higher in ourselves. But when you are trying to develop the Shamata in terms of the height, it should be where not too high, but like towards your forehead. If you look with your eyes very straight, and not too far away, where it's like there is a statue, then if you look, so in terms of that. And then in terms of that, you have to have bright, colorful. Colorful means bright. If you have the brightness, then it helps to overcome the dullness. Okay? It helps to overcome the dullness. And size shouldn't be too big. And then also, even though it is a Buddha's visualizing life, but very heavy, where it is not so in terms of where it is. If you visualize it as a very heavy, where it cannot be moved by anything, and then it's easy to keep concentration. If you think it is too light, then it is like when it's moved too quickly, then again it becomes a distraction. It is easy to become distracted. And so those are some of the things that keep, if we are using that as an object to that and so of course when we are doing a daily yoga such as self-generations, then of course we must try to have clarity, we must try to focus on clarity, because the more clarity appearance of that deity, then we will be able to overcome the appearance of impurity as ordinary beings. So we try to focus on the clarity when you are doing a generation stage in the tantric practice. But here, you know, that is a different purpose and different meaning. But here he's saying, you know, when we are trying objects for our samatha, the image doesn't have to be clear at the very beginning. You know, you don't have to work too hard to have the clarity to begin with. You know, as long as we have general image, even there is not clarity, you just try to focus that. So that is the way of difference here explaining. Because here the main purpose is to accomplish shamatha. So as long as you can develop shamatha, even the object's not clarity at the very beginning, you know, to develop that stability, that is the important part. So again, here it says, and for certain, yeah, maybe it might come later. And I think I did, I don't know whether it will come later. Maybe it comes later. One of the things I wanted to clear is, because two obstacles for the shamatha is excitement or distractions, and laxity and dullness. And so when you're using an object, if there is the dullness, we try to brighten the image. The more brighter it becomes, your mind becomes more alert, more awake. So it can help us to overcome the dullness. You know, when the dullness started to come, laxity started to come, then you can kind of brighten the color. You can see more brighter and more brighter, and that can be like kind of wake up. And then when it's distracted, another way of overcoming the kind of dullness or laxity is also going in the details. You know, when you just focus on the general image, then again, if your mind is becoming kind of a little bit dull, little bit feeling laxity, dullness, sinking, sleepy, then again, you can go through the details of each of the image, the feature of the Buddha, details. Again, going through the crown, eyes, all of detail, and then again, that help us to kind of become more alert, more awake, more fresh in your mind. And if you become too distracted, then again, you can sometimes help to reduce the brightness. And when you reduce the brightness, again, your mind is become a little bit more withdrawn. When it is a little bit withdrawn, then again, there's less distractions. Sometimes also when you try to make the image smaller and smaller in your mind, then also that can help to reduce certain level of the distractions. Because the smaller the object it become, the more your mind is withdrawn. The more your mind is withdrawn, then there's less distractions. And so that is one way of dealing with the distraction and laxity in terms of dealing with the image. When we have one of those obstacles, how to deal with that in order to reduce the distractions and in order to reduce the dullness or laxity in relation to the object of the Buddha's image. I think it might have already gone. So of course, this is kind of recommendations. But for some people, they might have a bit difficult with visualizations, you know. And if they have difficult visualizations, then, you know, and if they want to really develop shamatha, but if they have difficulty with visualizations, then they can use other objects instead of struggling with that objects and not being able to do that. It can be breath, it can be the mind itself, you know, and within the mind, it can be, as you mentioned, loving kindness, it can be non-attachment, it can be a non-pride, you know, it can be the wisdom, it can be the conventional nature of the mind, it can be the ultimate nature of the mind. So, or in some cases, you know, it can be any objects, the horn of the sheep. There is a story about a shepherd, you know, who used to have a lot of sheep, who used to look after the sheep. And he wanted to learn about meditative concentration. So the teacher gave him some meditation to visualize Buddha's image, and he was having a very difficult. He couldn't visualize the Buddha's image, you know, in his mind. And then the teachers said, "What about you visualize the horn of the sheep?" And he can visualize very clearly, because that is what he had been seeing all his life. Because he was shepherd, because he was taking care of the sheep all the time, because he had seen that horn all the time in his mind, even without looking at that, he can easily have that image. And so it taught him to use that as the object. And by using that as an object, he was able to develop the shamatha. Okay. Once you have developed shamatha, then you can, in relation to one object, then afterwards, you can kind of direct to any object, and then you wouldn't have any difficulties. But at the very beginning, at the first time when you are trying to develop meditative concentration, shamatha, we try to use one object, not change that. Once you have already developed shamatha, then you can direct to any object and you wouldn't have any problems. So that is one thing. And so in that cases, you know, that person, that particular person, he was able to do shamatha by using the horn of the sheep as an object. So we can use. And again, I think I have met so many people, you know, some people who have very difficult of visualization. Any visualization, they say, what does that mean? And I say, you know, can you have an image of your mom? And they said they cannot have that image. I said, can you think an image of a, you know, burger or pizza? And they say, you know, they cannot think of that image. I've come across some people who have very difficult with that, you know. And then I have also come with other people who says visualization is so easy for them. They can visualize very easily, but who have difficult concentration on the breath. They struggle to keep your mind focused without distractions on the breath. But when they visualize, they use some image and visualizations, it's easy for them to focus on that. So, you know, different peoples, we have different mind, different imprint. And so, you know, and so also that will be one factors, you know, in our, how to use one particular object as a object of our shamatha, you know. So that will also kind of make a difference. Yeah, I have met quite a bit of people who struggles And what do you, yeah, and I thought they were just confused with just the word, visualizations or imagine, but, and when I said, what about, can you think of the image of your mom? And they said they can't. Burgers, pizza, and they said they cannot think in their mind image. And so that is interesting, you take for granted everyone will be able to imagine. But of course, those also can be, with the training, it can be improved. But I think if you struggle so much, and especially if you want to be serious about cultivating Shamata, then you should recognize what is more easier and you try to apply on that. And it is not related with this exactly, but it is related with the Shamata, also in terms of posture, generally, again, the 8 posture or 7 posture we already discussed before is very important. But also for some people, because of the way their body is, sometimes for some people, by lying might be better. Or there is a story of Buddha's time. Again, one of the disciples struggles in his meditation with that posture. And then that was told to the Buddhas. And then Buddha told him he can meditate and do the meditation by lying down. And he had more success in his meditation when he did that. And because it is said that the way his body structure is slightly different from our body structures. His body structures, like the spine, everything, a little bit kind of crooked, a little bit, instead of straight like us, he was a little bit kind of, they say like a cow, like animals, And so because of when he lie down, there's a better movement of his wind energies because of the structures of the body. And when there's a better movement of flow and movement of wind energy, his mind was more clear and he was able to concentrate better. And so again, those are kind of some exceptional, according to individual body structures sometimes. Also that make differences. And so I think there might be one question. Do people advance in their meditation if they just stay on breath as an object of meditation? There's no much daily visualizing, sadhana, puja, and in Haisivotanda. Is there a time when it's best move towards visual Buddha as an object of meditation? I didn't understand all of that. Do people advance in their meditation if they just stay with the breath as an object of meditation? Yeah, of course, by using breath as an object of meditation, definitely someone's meditation can be advanced and improved. I mean, your mindfulness will improve, your introspection will improve, and through that, one concentrations, one focus, one attention can improve, and with improve that, one can develop and improve one's meditations. There is so much daily visualization, sadhana, puja, and Haisivotanda. Is there a time when it is best move towards visual Buddha as object of meditations? Again, I said, it depends on individual, it depends on individuals. And as here, Lama Tsongkhapa kind of recommend or instruct, and by following certain Indian masters and according to certain sutta, then if someone is trying to develop Shamata, they can use it. Even now, But again, as I said, it depends on individuals. Even as some of the objects, they say, for some people who have too much thought, focus on breath help them to overcome those thoughts and less distractions. And people who struggle with the breath and who is easier with the visualizations, then they can do the visualizations. And especially if you are using as a visualization any object as a object of meditation, then definitely to use Buddha's image than others would be much more better. But again, as I said, with that particular person's with a horn, also it can be different for different individuals. And that is one of the beauty of the Dharma, and also maybe also a little bit overwhelming of too much information there is because they give all these different options, and we have to find ourselves which is most beneficial and most effective to us, and then decide that. So I think, yeah. And for some individuals, while they, I think maybe that is enough. Okay, so if there's no question, then we can do the dedications. The wish granting, wish fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparable kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. To Zhang Xin Zhang Gun Jiao and Jin Zhong Bebe Kun Sa To Ho Zi Zhou Sun Hu Wei Le Mo Tu Zhou Ha Da So Du Jie Guan Du Xiao Pen Xiu. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.